Here is a word problem. It's multi-steps, kind of all the scenarios that might be on a word problem. It says an arrow is shot up in the air and it has an arc and it comes back down and hits the ground. The path of the arrow can be modeled by this function. It's a quadratic function. So imagine if you were to shoot an arrow, what would it look like? What would be its shape? What do we call that fancy thing?
Arc.
An arc or a
Parabola.
parabola. It kind of goes like this, right? And it comes back and hits the ground. I don't know exactly how wide it goes, whatever. I don't really care at this point. Where it says H stands for the height and X stands for the distance from left to right. So H of X equals negative 2x squared plus 24x minus 32. What form is that quadratic function in? It's in standard form. Okay. And this is my x-axis, which is the distance the arrow will travel in feet. And then this is the height of the arrow, which normally we would say is y. In this case, it's h. And it asks us to give the vertex and the zeros, then sketch the graph of this situation. So how do you find the vertex, the highest point? How do you find this right here? There was a little shortcut we said. 2a, yes. Opposite of b over 2a, or x equals negative b over 2a. That gives us the x value. So we substitute in the b. Where's my b? And then all over my 2a.
So you don't have to let this
Not for the shortcut to find the vertex, no. If you want to find the zeros later, yes. So negative 24 over negative 4, which is 6. So now we know this vertex is right there at 6, but now we know how high that vertex goes. How do you find the y value of the vertex?
You just plug in the number.
Just evaluate the function at 6. So I'd say h of 6 is negative 2, 6 squared, plus 24 times 6, minus 32. Calculator probably is needed here. Someone can help me out. Careful on your multiplying. So let's take care of negative 2 times 36 is negative 72. Then 24 times 6.
144.
Okay. And then negative 72 plus 144 minus 32. Okay. So now I know the vertex point. So this would be 40 here. So whenever you're talking in a word problem, the maximum or minimum, what are we looking for? The vertex. Whenever you hear maximum or minimum point, you're looking for the vertex. And if it's in standard form, use opposite of b over 2a, get that x value, and then substitute in. So now I know the vertex. Then it says, find the zeros of the function.
I would assume one of the zeros would be 0. Because, I mean, he can't stand negative.
Zeros represent what in the graph? Where are they on the graph? Very good, the x-intercepts. So how do you find the x-intercepts?
Now you solve for y.
Solve for what? So, to find the zeros, you find the x-intercepts. So you set the function, the y, equal to 0, and you solve for x. So I'm just rewriting the original function. And now we solve for x. So now how do you solve for x? There's many ways to do it. Factor, quadratic formula, complete the square. Solve by undoing. What's the way we'd like you to go first? Factor if you can. So let's see if we can factor it. What would we do to factor that? Is there a greatest common factor? Yep. A -2. So now I could take out a -2. I'm left with this. Then I say chart method. Are there any factors of 16 that add a -12? Eight and 2, 4 and 4. Nope, doesn't help me. So then I could complete the square or quadratic formula. Most students choose what? I betcha. Quadratic formula. So A equals -2, B equals 24, C equals -32. And I sub it. -b plus or minus b squared minus 4 a c all over 2a.
Discriminant is 320.
It's 320. Okay. -24 plus or minus 24 squared is 576. -4 times -2 times -32 is -256 all over -4. Reduce the radical. But you got what?
320.
320 over -4.
Yeah, can't be.
-24 plus or minus 17.9 over -4. And then break it up into its two scenarios. X equals -24 plus 17.9 over -4, and x equals -24 plus 17.9 over -4. Oh, there's 3 minus here.
Of course, those are approximate answers.
Uh-huh. Yep, that's in there. So then I have, I'm just gonna round those to like a 1.5 and 10.5. If I go back and graph those, here would be 1.5, here would be, let's say 10. It asks us to say how far away from the shooter does the arrow land?
Is the shooter at 0, 0?
Should be at 0, 0. Yeah, and then what value of x is the arrow 12 feet high? So that one you can just evaluate it. What value of x is the arrow 12 feet? You could plug in 12 for h and then solve it. Kind of run out of time there. But that would be the biggest scenario. The most important thing is, you know, read the question, maybe draw the picture, remember the tools of how you find the vertex, how do you find the x-intercepts? How do you maybe find the y-intercept? Remember, this is your y-intercept.